I lost everything until the truth came out. It felt like I had hit rock bottom. Nothing was going my way, and there was no sign of things improving. But the truth has a way of surfacing. And when it did, everything changed. I'm 34M, a former small business owner, the kind of guy who lived and breathed work. Not in a sad way. I genuinely loved what I built. 6 years ago, I co-founded a mid-sized IT consulting firm with my business partner, someone I had known since college, someone who was at my wedding, someone I trusted without a second thought. We started in my apartment with 2 laptops and a Costco box of energy drinks. By year 5, we had 23 employees, a downtown office, and contracts with 3 regional hospital systems. I was proud of it in a way I cannot fully describe. Then, in the span of 4 months, I had nothing. Let me explain how it happened, because the mechanics of it matter. And more importantly, let me explain how one small detail, a folder I almost deleted, changed everything. My business partner and I had an equal split. 50-50 on equity, decision-making, profit distribution. On paper, perfect. In practice, we'd been growing in different directions for about 2 years without really saying it out loud. I was focused on operations, building the team, managing client relationships. He had taken over the financial side, invoicing, vendor contracts, banking relationships. I trusted him with that completely. He was sharp with numbers, and I was not. So I let him handle it. That was my mistake. The first sign I missed was how often he deflected when I asked for financial updates. Not dramatically, just, "I'll send you the full breakdown this week." And then it wouldn't come, and I'd forget to follow up because something else needed my attention. This went on longer than I want to admit. The second sign was a client call I wasn't supposed to hear. I came into the office early one morning, and my partner was in the conference room, door not fully closed, speaking to someone in a tone I'd never heard him use. Low, deliberate, almost conspiratorial. I heard him say, "Don't worry about him. He's not going to be involved in the renewal." Him was me. I stood in the hallway for a moment, then walked to my office and sat down and tried to figure out what I'd just heard. I didn't confront him that day. I started paying attention instead. Over the next 3 weeks, I quietly pulled together what I could access. Invoices, client communications, our shared project management system. What I found made the floor drop out from under me. 3 of our largest clients, accounts I had personally developed, relationships I had spent years maintaining, had been quietly transitioned. Their contracts had been amended. The signatory on each renewal was a new LLC I had never heard of. My partner's name was tied to it through a registered agent filing I found with 20 minutes on the state's business lookup portal. He was walking our clients out the door, into his own company, while still sitting across from me at lunch every Thursday. I called an attorney that week, a business litigation attorney who specialized in partnership disputes. She was direct and did not sugarcoat it. She said what he had done, diverting business opportunities and clients that belonged to the partnership into a competing entity he owned, was a breach of fiduciary duty. In most states, partners in a business owe each other a duty of loyalty, meaning you cannot secretly compete against the business you co-own. She said we had grounds to pursue him. She also said he likely knew exactly what he was doing and had probably been preparing for this longer than I realized. She was right about that last part. Before I could file anything, he moved first. I came into the office on a Tuesday morning, and my key card didn't work. I stood at the front door for a moment thinking it was a system glitch. I called our office manager. Long pause on the phone. Then she said quietly, "He told us you resigned. He sent an email last night saying you'd stepped down voluntarily and that he was assuming full operational control effective immediately." I had resigned from nothing. I had sent no email. He had drafted it himself, sent it from a spoofed version of my email address to staff and several clients, and used it as the basis to lock me out of the building, the company bank accounts, and our internal systems. By the time I understood what was happening, he had already spoken to our landlord about removing me from the office lease and contacted our business insurance provider to update the authorized representative on the policy. This was not a panicked reaction. This was a plan he had been executing for months. I was standing in a parking lot with my phone, locked out of everything I had spent 6 years building. The company's name was still partially mine. The equity documents said 50-50. But operationally, he had just erased me. The attorney filed an emergency motion for injunctive relief within 48 hours. In a partnership dispute where one partner is actively dissipating assets or locking the other out, Courts can issue a temporary restraining order to preserve the status quo while the case is heard. We got a hearing scheduled. The judge issued a temporary order preventing him from making any further unilateral changes to the business structure, bank accounts, or client contracts pending the outcome of the case. That he showed up to that hearing with a 2-attorney team and a stack of documents I had not seen before. His story, delivered through his lead attorney with complete confidence, was that I had a documented history of erratic behavior, that I had been absent and disengaged for over a year, that the company's financial struggles were directly attributable to my mismanagement of the operations side, and that my voluntary resignation, which he still insisted was real, was the culmination of a long professional decline. He submitted what appeared to be internal communications showing me missing deadlines, ignoring emails, failing to show up for client calls. I sat there reading through that packet and recognized almost none of it. The emails attributed to me had my name on them, but the writing wasn't mine. The timestamps were off in ways that would only matter if you knew my actual habits. He had fabricated a paper trail. Not clumsily, carefully. Enough to create doubt. My attorney leaned over and whispered, "This is going to get expensive and take time. I need you to stay calm and let me work." The next 2 months were brutal in ways I'll keep brief because the financial stuff isn't the dramatic part. I was locked out of my income. I had savings that covered about 4 months of expenses. I had a mortgage. The legal fees started stacking. Mutual contacts in our industry, people I had worked alongside for years, started hearing his version of events first, and his version was polished and consistent and made me sound like a liability he'd been carrying. I'd show up to a networking event and feel the temperature change. People were polite in the distant way people are when they've already decided something about you. He also made a specific move that was designed to be personal. We had a junior employee, someone I had hired straight out of college, mentored, promoted. And he told this employee that I had been planning layoffs before I left, that I'd earmarked his position specifically, and that he had protected him by accepting my resignation. This employee, who I considered something close to a mentee, started avoiding my calls. He believed it. Why wouldn't he? The story came from the person still in the building. Here's where things turn. And I need you to pay attention to the sequence, because every piece of it matters. During discovery, the legal process where both sides exchanged documents, we subpoenaed 6 years of company financial records. All of them. Bank statements, vendor contracts, wire transfers, payroll records, everything. He produced documents. Organized, professional, seemingly complete. Except I had something he didn't know about. When we started the company, I had set up our original accounting software. I was the one who configured it, set the admin credentials, migrated us from the free version to the paid plan. When we eventually switched to a different platform in year 3, I handled the data migration. And when I did that, I had exported a complete backup of the original 6 years of transaction data to an encrypted folder on a personal external drive. Not for any suspicious reason, just because I'm the kind of person who keeps backups of things. That drive had been sitting in a box in my home office. My attorney asked me early in the process if there were any financial records I personally held. I told her about the drive. She got a forensic accountant involved. What the forensic accountant found over 3 weeks of analysis was methodical and damning. Beginning approximately 18 months before he locked me out, my partner had initiated a pattern of vendor payments to 3 companies I had never approved and could not verify as legitimate service providers. The amounts were not enormous individually, ranging from $4,000 to $11,000 per transaction. But they were consistent and recurring. When the forensic accountant mapped the totals, it came to just over $340,000 moved out of the company over that 18-month period. We traced the vendor entities. 2 of them were registered LLCs with no web presence, no verifiable employees, no history of operating in the IT services space. Both were registered in states with minimal disclosure requirements. One of them, when we dug further, had a registered agent address that was a mail forwarding service. And that service's records, subpoenaed separately, showed correspondence going to my partner's home address. He had been running a ghost vendor scheme, creating fake companies, invoicing his own real company, approving the payments himself because he controlled the financial side, and collecting the money on the back end. For a year and a half. While sitting across from me at Thursday lunches, the $340,000 did not include the client diversion. The clients he had walked into his new LLC represented projected contract value over the next 3 years of approximately $1.2 million. My attorney filed an amended complaint adding claims of breach of fiduciary duty, civil fraud, conversion, and unjust enrichment. She also filed a separate report with the State Attorney General's office, given the scale of the financial fraud. Wire fraud across state lines, even in civil cases, frequently draws the attention of federal investigators when reported through the right channels. He did not see the backup drive coming. No one would have. It wasn't a dramatic secret weapon I had planted. It was a routine backup from year 1 sitting forgotten in a cardboard box. But it contained the original transaction records before he had any opportunity to clean them. And when laid against the documents he produced in discovery, the discrepancies were impossible to explain away. His legal team's response to the forensic accounting report was fascinating to watch in a grim kind of way. First, they argued the backup data was inadmissible. That argument failed. The data was authenticated through the forensic accountant's methodology and chain of custody documentation. Then they argued the vendor payments were for legitimate consulting services that I simply hadn't been informed of. They could not produce a single deliverable, contract, or communication from those vendors to support that. Then his lead attorney filed a motion to compel additional discovery from my side, which read like a delay tactic because that is what it was. The judge was patient for about 2 hearings. Then she was not. At a case management conference approximately 5 months into litigation, the judge noted on the record that one party had produced forensic-level documentation of financial transactions spanning 6 years, and the responding party had produced declarations and generalized denials. She set a firm trial date and stated clearly that motions designed to delay proceedings without substantive basis would be sanctioned. His attorney team, the 2-person firm he'd shown up with in the beginning, quietly withdrew from the case 4 weeks later, citing irreconcilable differences regarding case strategy. That is attorney language for the client either can't pay or has stopped following advice. He appeared at the next hearing with a single attorney, someone clearly less experienced in complex commercial litigation. The settlement offer came 8 months after I'd been locked out of my own building. His new attorney reached out to my attorney with a proposal. He was offering to return my equity stake, pay back half the documented vendor fraud amount, and release all claims against me related to the alleged voluntary resignation. My attorney called me and described it in a flat tone that told me exactly what she thought of it. He wants you to take half of what he stole and call it even. No, I said. Good, she said. Because I think we go to trial and we win. I want to give you the outcome in full because this is the part that matters. At trial, which lasted 4 days, the forensic accountant testified. He walked through the vendor scheme with the kind of quiet precision that is somehow more devastating than drama. Transaction by transaction. Payment by payment, entity by entity. The opposing attorney cross-examined him for almost half a day and could not land a meaningful blow because the numbers were the numbers and the records were the records. My partner testified. He was not the composed, confident person I had watched charm clients for 6 years. He was evasive. He contradicted himself on the vendor relationships twice within the same cross-examination. When my attorney showed him the registered agent records tying one of the ghost vendors to his home address, the courtroom went quiet in a specific way that feels significant even when you're trying to stay neutral. The jury deliberated for less than 2 days. They found in my favor on all counts. Breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, conversion. The damages award was $1.1 million, which included the embezzled vendor payments, the diverted client contract value, and punitive damages the jury added on their own given the deliberate and sustained nature of the fraud. Punitive damages in business fraud cases exist precisely for situations where someone has acted with malice or conscious disregard. The jury decided this qualified. His new LLC was ordered to disgorge the client contracts. Those clients, the ones he had walked out the door while eating Thursday lunch with me, were legally compelled to honor the transition back to the original partnership entity or renegotiate through proper channels. The Attorney General's office, which had received our report months earlier, filed its own separate criminal fraud case 4 months after the civil trial. Wire fraud, criminal conversion, filing false business documents. I was not involved in prosecuting that case. I had no role in it, but I followed it. He was convicted on 2 of 3 counts. He was sentenced to 27 months in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution. His new LLC was dissolved. His professional reputation in the industry, which had been built partially on the back of work I contributed to, was gone. The employee he had turned against me, the one he told I had been planning to lay him off, reached out about a month after the civil verdict. He had seen the coverage of the trial. He asked if we could talk. We met for coffee. He didn't say much. He just said, "I should have called you back." I told him I understood why he hadn't. He's back working with me now. I rebuilt. Not in a montage, slowly, carefully, with significantly more attention to who handles the finances. The company is smaller than it was at its peak, but it's clean and it's mine in the way it always should have been. What still gets me is how close I came to just taking the settlement. Half of what he stole, a return of my equity, and move on. The only reason I didn't was that the number didn't feel like justice. And the only reason we had leverage to reject it was a backup drive in a cardboard box from 6 years ago that I almost threw out twice during office moves. Pay attention to what you archive. And hit subscribe, because if this story kept you reading, you clearly have a thing for people who get exactly what they deserve.